Alrighty, so this is just a tutorial on how to do a cool little double exposure effect. So you're going to need two things to do this tutorial. The first one is going to be a portrait, like the one I have here. So you can use this one from the Google Classroom, or you can use one that you took during the photography pracs that we have done. You also want an image with some vibrancy. So you can also use these images here from the classroom, or again, if you have any photos from photography exercises that you think might work, you can use those. First thing we're going to want to do is right click portrait, and we're going to want to open it with Photoshop. Cool. Once we're here, we're going to want to unlock the background, select the subject. So if you come up top and go select and then subject, we're going to want to select the subject. We're going to want to press Command C to copy, create a new layer, and paste that subject onto that new layer like I've done there. Delete the original photo, and you should have something that looks like this. The next thing we're going to want to do is duplicate this layer. So we're going to do that by dragging it down to the plus like this. We are then going to select the subject again on this copy layer. So select subject, and then we are going to make a mask layer with that subject there by clicking this little icon down here. The next thing we're going to want to do is import that second image. So I would do that by just dragging it in like this. You're then going to want to resize and rescale it so that it works within your image. So I'm going to use this little bit of the tree here and this pinkish ombre in the sky like I've done there. Once you're happy with the size and location of that second image, you want to right click it and you want to go to rasterize layer down here. Once it is rasterized, you're going to right click it again and you're going to go create clipping mask. And what that should do is create an effect like that. Cool. The next thing you can do is you can adjust the colors of the image in here. So if you want to, you can adjust the hue and saturation. So you might make it more saturated. You might make it a different color, or you might completely desaturate it altogether, depending on what effect you want. I'm just going to leave it as is, something like that. But yeah, once you're happy with your adjustments, this is the next step. So you then want to click this image layer here and you want to create a mask. So again, like that. Following this, we want to use the eraser tool, and now we're just going to bring back some features from the original image. So to do that, I would bring down the opacity. So if you leave it at 100, it will create these very stark changes. But if you bring it down to say something like 30, it will be a lot more subtle when you bring the image back like I've done here. The other thing I would look at is your hardness. So the harder the brushes, the rougher or the sharper those edges are going to be. So if I bring this down to something like 22, you'll see that you get a much more subtle effect happening here. Once you've got once you've got the eraser how you like it, you are just going to rub out the original image like I have done here. You don't have to do the whole image. Like looking at that, I think it's going to look much better if I just do the top and the sides. Again, less is more sometimes. So something like that looks quite nice. The next thing we're going to want to do is add a drop shadow to this image layer. So if you click it and then double click it, you will get this layer styles box open. If you come down here to drop shadow and click the box, it will create a little pop effect and it will just help that layer stand out more. While you're here, you can also look at different effects like outer glow, pattern overlay, gradient overlay, color overlay, inner glow, inner shadow, stroke, etc. I would just leave it as a drop shadow for now. Once you've done this, we are going to create our background color. So to do that, you just go plus, put that new layer down the bottom, call it background. Then use the paint bucket tool to select your color. There you go. You have this cool little effect in under 10 minutes. So once you're happy with your image, you can also play around with position and things like that by just pressing Command T. I am generally happy with how this image is looking right now. So I'm just going to export it. You might also want to look at different color schemes and things like that. So black, black might look quite nice. Or a shade of gray. Just leave it white. You could also use the eyedropper tool and find gradients within this image to use. So if you just press I or come over here, you can also do something like that. Cool, but for the purpose of this tutorial, I think I'm done. So now we're going to go File, Export, Export As. This is a new window for a lot of you. I would just leave the image size the same. If it's huge, say like more than 2000 pixels, bring it down to something like what I have here. Your format's going to be PNG. Everything else is fine. Export, and then again, save it to that multimedia folder. And you could just call this double exposure or exercise 2 or whatever. Cool. Once that's done, check that it's in that folder. There we go. Throw that on the Google Classroom.